every time I tell Steve it won't be long, it ends up being the longest, so I don't say anything anymore.
You're just telling him that so he gets his hopes up, so he doesn't have to give that dog a shot.
Well, I
Or
was
that
able
dog
to do
a
it tonight,
shot.
'cause I do it, between
That's right.
5 and 6, so I could do it for him tonight. He was okay.
Y'all ready down there? Y'all good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Y'all. Like to call the Board of Supervisors to order. As always, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Mr. Weekly, anything we need to add to the agenda?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anybody else? What would y'all like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, public comment. Public comment. Just tell us who you are.
Good evening, I'm Jason Summers. I'm a business owner here in Madison, the town and the county. The owner of Aria, and I'm here to actually offer a letter of support to our federal representative and senators. The reason is we're looking for them to correct an issue associated with tax law that's having a huge implication on our business and really on the nation as a whole. We are a research and development contractor. We do work for primarily the Department of Defense, Navy, Missile Defense Agency, Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and so forth. We develop algorithms and systems. And in the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was put into effect in 2017, there was a change to a piece of the tax code called Section 174. And what that did is it made research and development expenses that had to be amortized over a 5-year period. And in the first year, there's a half-year rule, so only 10% of the expenses are allowed to be put against your gross. So the impact of that, and I can go into it in some detail, is that companies like Aria, who do research and development only during this first year, so filing on the 15th of March, have to pay 33% of our gross revenues as tax. So that's an effective tax rate, marginal rate of 400%. And that doesn't get better over the first 4 years of amortization ends up being about twice that overall. And then we go back to the amounts that we paid before, but there's no recovery. So we're looking for, on the advice of the National Tax Union and other people we've spoken to talk to our local and state and other representatives to make this clear, the impact of what this is doing to small businesses, to quite frankly, national security, because most businesses that do research and development of our nature are supporting the Department of Defense. So they understand those impacts and hopefully get it addressed as quickly as possible. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about that now or afterward. Unfortunately, I can't stay, but I can provide my contact information, and Tracy has that as well.
I think that Tracy printed off for us your drafted letter of support. We don't do this very often. I guess let's go Sean Gray. What if we choose to support something like this? I mean, what do we have to? We have to take action of it as the board, correct?
It would have to be as the board, and it would be appropriate to provide a resolution, and I would encourage the board not to adopt resolutions based on public comment. As the board is aware, public comment is simply that.
Absolutely.
It is not really a call for immediate action. Having said that, if this letter is submitted, and I understand that it now has been submitted, the county can look into it, either me or Mr. Weekly or someone else, or Ms. Gardner for that matter, to determine what other counties might be doing to make sure that we're sending a consistent message.
Questions for Mr. Summers? Anybody? What would y'all like to do here? John?
Just a quick
Go ahead.
statement. So I had some conversations with Ms. Gardner this morning, so that's what prompted Mr. Sumner's request. I wanted him to come make the official request because, quite frankly, trying to go through budget, I didn't research Section 174, so my apologies. But it was definitely to get it on your burner or on your radar. So certainly the board's pleasure. We meet 2 additional times this week. So if it's something you would like for us to try to, look at it this week, see if we can get a turnaround. But again, I think at a minimum, Sean and I need to take some further look at what Section 174 means, and also talk to the town representatives as well to see if they are passing. I understand the town meets this Thursday, so they may or may not have this on their schedule.
Are you planning on going to the town?
I already have, yeah.
And I don't know if Ms. Gardner has
Yeah,
additional.
go ahead.
Well, the only thing I think here Friday, and it didn't dawn on me until after I got his email, that they spoke about it Friday, the 17th partnership in regards to UVA. So I can talk about that more.
I think I see on the bottom of it, it says this is an urgent matter. What is the timeline on this, Mr. Summers?
Well, the filing deadline is the 15th of March, and companies have to submit estimated. So that is a very large amount of money. And as a federal contractor, we have to stay in compliance with the IRS, otherwise we can't work.
And you think, I'm mocking in a way, I'm sorry. You think that the Madison Board of Supervisors is going to change federal tax code by the 15th of March?
Well, what I've talked to so far representatives, Hamburger's people, and they've said that as much support as we can get to help them understand the impact of this on communities. So that's what I'm hoping for. People realize that this has impacts.
So, Mr. Summers, is this your first year of experience in this? I mean, if you said it started in 2017
Oh, 2022 is the first year it goes into effect.
into effect,
And,
okay.
and quite frankly, no one thought it wouldn't be repealed. But it's a very obviously complicated part of the tax code. My accountants understand it in a way that I don't. But,
All right. Mr. Yao wants to ask it, but I'll steal it. Like, are you open up at the post office?
we stopped our renovation because we had to potentially preserve a lot of cash. So we've been open we're a 13-year-old business.
Darn, that's
But we've been in the middle of renovating that during the pandemic, which is not the best time to renovate a building, but
And Ms. Gardner, you may want to mention the monies, the quad tank.
Yeah, he was one of the finalists in the project. But I would really like to tell you guys what the business is and the jobs that you have.
oh yeah, I was just I didn't provide that.
There was in that big amount.
Yeah, the town had some questions just about what's the nature of the kind of work we do, what are the nature of our jobs. I mentioned a little bit about this, right? So we're a research and development company. We're supporting Department of Defense, doing things like we develop sonar algorithms that go on Navy ships, or algorithms that help the Missile Defense Administration shoot down potential incoming nuclear weapons, that kind of stuff. So with scientists and engineers, they're well-paid jobs. I think I've provided some information to Tracy. Our average salary is $150,000, not including benefits, for our employees here. Our employees have, on average, have been around 5.5 years. We've had folks on since we started 13 years ago.
How many employees?
We're under 30 right now. We're too small. We need to hire more. Actually, we're cramped on space. So one of the reasons for moving to that space is so we can hire more people. And we have security
You need
requirements,
his name.
which that building's great for because it's a post office. So it's got the right configuration.
All right. Where are you located now?
We're leasing space in Culpeper.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? What would y'all like? Mr. Greg's right. It didn't time, but thank you for indulging all our questions.
Sure.
Y'all want to get Jonathan and Sean to see if they can review
Tracy,
this,
yeah.
and Tracy, excuse me, and then get back to us promptly I know y'all have got a lot of load by Thursday, but is that possible? Give you a copy of it. Yeah. That work for everybody?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, hey, Annette, do you know anything about this? Okay.
All right. That was interesting. Other public comment. A lot of people watching us online, Alan. Just us. There you go. We're done with public comment. Consent agenda. We have minutes for 209:23 and 214:23, and the supplemental appropriations from the schools. And a sheet's been provided on that. Total is 475,820. Mr. Weekly, anything to add on this?
No, I met with Jennifer this morning. You had the letter in your packet. This just came today because she was going through and verifying funding and where that hit. So the treasurer and Ms. Warren have met and confirmed those totals are accurate. So this is basically fulfilling the supplemental request that the school had asked for at their last school board meeting or the meeting prior.
And it's all revenue and expense offset, I see. So
Yes, there's
that's what
the one of the 475,820.09, Mr. Yao. They are requesting the 171,428 of local funds that were turned in from last year. You're going to hear, and this is for the whole board, their capital request that's coming to you on Thursday. Part of this monies they plan adding to, it's roughly 810K they have remaining of their school construction funds. They want to use to put towards, I think it's an air handling unit and some other chillers and things. So you'll see that 171 number again in that CIP request on Thursday. But this has been vetted and staff recommends approval.
What would y'all like to do?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Motion is made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No special appearances this evening. VRA consent agreement. Mr. Weekly?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We brought back his old business. I want to first thank Mr. Gregg for his work on this. A lot of back and forth with legal, multiple jurisdictions, as well as some information we received from VRA. So we have received notice that Green has passed this. They've signed it. RSA at their last meeting, the RSA board passed this. I've actually seen a copy that had VRA's executive director's signature. So certainly, Mr. Gregg can chime in if you wish. I think you have everything that would be needed, including there was past comment about litigation. Mr. Gregg has taken that board action to the proper attorneys, and we believe that could be settled by the 15th, Mr. Gregg?
Optimistically, it'll be done by the 15th. If it really depends on how long it's on the State Corporation Commission's desk. What I understand is it takes 2 or 3 days for them to do it. Once we sign this document, we will forward that. Orange County, as I understand it, is submitting its acknowledgement of the consent agreement at its meeting this afternoon as well. So the only thing that remains is getting the State Corporation Commission to sign off.
And thank you, sir. So this approval is necessary before getting the SEC. And to Supervisor Yao's point, I can't remember if it was at the RSA board meeting or a Board of Supervisor meeting. The question was, when will we get acknowledgement from VRA that the remaining processes? So did reach out as I promised the board, and they are tracking right along with this. So it is concurrent with Greene County and RSA's understanding of the next steps.
To that end, the board will recall there was some question as to whether VRA would approve this withdrawal. It turns out they are going to approve it, and I think at this stage, VRA is anxious to, make the approval so we can move forward and Greene County can operate its water system, and RSA will remain with, the constituent members, Madison and Orange.
Questions or comments on this?
Well, since I've been involved with this, if you look at Article 1, 1.01 and 1.02, I mean, VRA still got some conditions, but none of which, when I read through the conditions, are anything that we should be concerned about. So I mean, in 1.01, it says VRA represents that it has received evidence satisfactory to it. So that's good. And then 102 puts the conditions in there, which are really, pretty benign. So I, I would move that we approve the VRA consent agreement as presented.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
And as a further part of the motion, are you directing the chairman to execute the consent agreement on behalf of Madison County?
Yes, I will. Then I will make another motion to direct the chairman to execute the VRA consent agreement on behalf of Madison County.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Radio project update.
Mr. Chairman, we have, and Brian just got updated information from Motorola this morning. That's why we just had it as an update in the packet. But Kim is going to, or Ms. Turner is going to bring up the information that Mr. Gordon is going to coverage. Brian, if you could, because some things transpired at the Planning Commission workshop, so maybe just for the whole board, how we got to the point and what we've evaluated, or you have evaluated, please.
Okay. Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, came before the Planning Commission to kind of go over where we were with the Churchill site. We met some opposition. The following day, Jonathan and I went out and looked at some options. The opposition was by and large, the folks up there want the tower, they want communication, but it was not a very good spot. So to that end, we went up and we looked around to see what we could find. And we did find a total of 3 different places to look at. What I have up here is the microwave path survey. The first survey, this is the Churchill survey right here. If you'll scroll down just a little bit, that bottom right-hand box where it says antenna CL, that's 150 feet above ground level. The tower is set to be 170 feet, well within that. So that would mean the microwave dish would have to be at the 150-foot mark to be able to get line of sight to get backhaul back to Blakeney Ridge. When I ran the other 3 options, the first option was the Ayler Farm. Second option was Foster's Mountain, as I'm calling it. And then the third option was Yow Farm. We ranged in tower heights from 214 feet to 1,200 feet. None of them being below 200 feet, which means the tower would have to be lit. That is something we're trying to avoid like the plague. We do not want a lit tower in Hetland or anywhere else in Madison if we can help it. So to that end, I wanted to make the board aware of what we're looking at here. I've just been made aware of a 4th option that I'm going to pursue. I just ran some preliminary numbers baseline. It does not look super promising, but it does not, I can't rule it out based on what I have in my hand on my phone. So I'm about to send it off to Microwave Networks and Motorola to actually run the numbers on it. But the problem is Delaney Mountain. Delaney Mountain runs the backbone along 231 from Madison, well, from Banco all the way to Hetland. And it's pretty high terrain on that thing. So you've pretty much got to thread the needle, so to speak. The site we have at Churchill does that. Hughes River did that on the backside of Delaney Mountain, and it was several hundred feet higher than what we were looking at here. So there's a lot of different things come into play. This is not an easy task. We're trying everything we can to do good by the folks up there and everywhere else at the same time.
Safe to mention, or just to reiterate, the balloon test is still scheduled for the 14th, and rain day is the 15th or the 16th, but that is for the current Churchill site. So we did keep that in place so they can run their report so you can get that information.
And when we get the numbers back on that, my hope is it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is. I don't know that. And quite honestly, it's hard to envision a 170-foot tower up there without having the balloon test. What we're going to run into is we're going to have to do another balloon test at some point. And right now, the finish line for this project is still like August of 24. We have to test with leaves on the trees. If we push back much farther, you're looking at spring of 25 and beyond.
See what the balloon. We all know this is public safety, and the tower is going up in Etland somewhere. At the planning commission meeting, there was staunch opposition to the tower site. I think everybody's hope is that the balloon test will prove us all wrong. And it won't be an eyesore or provide health risk or I don't know any of the other miscellaneous comments that are problematic about that site. But evaluating one more site is kind of part of the due diligence process.
And we want to get, obviously we have to get permission from, there's various landowners that were there that night, but if they would let us up on their porch or their property, we want vantage points from their view.
And to that point, we can do that with the balloon test. I'm going to contact some of the folks that contacted me and pretty much ask, can I drive up your driveway from your front porch, take a picture of this balloon to see, so we'll know exactly what we're looking at and go from there.
So Brian, is the balloon test still only between 10 and 2?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason we could have changed it, but then you have to re-advertise. And I understand, folks, not everybody can be there for that, but if someone wants us to take a vantage point, we can make that happen.
Right.
And I can take pictures of my own to show folks what it looks like.
There was just, yeah, right. There was some that just wanted extended longer than 2, but.
Right. I mean, we could probably extend it longer.
Yeah, what do we have to do to do that?
I can
Two.
call KCI Motorola and see if we can extend it from instead of 2 o'clock window to a 4 o'clock window. It's going to cost us some more money because obviously we're paying some folks to be out there. But at the end of the day, they work for us. If we want them to do that, then we can make that happen.
Just a brief point on that. We only run into trouble if we do not conduct the test for a shorter period of time. We can run it for a longer period of time.
Okay.
How much do you think it's going to add to the cost if we run it an extra 2 hours?
I can't say that.
I'm sure
I
that's
can
gonna
find
be
out, but I can't say with
most
any
expensive 2 hours.
anything I say here is to be a guess.
Yeah, most of the folks charge their trip time, where they start and when they get back. So he can run those numbers for you.
Is that something we're interested in? Letting them run a little bit longer so that everybody gets a
I
view
can't
of this
see it
one?
being a big number.
I'd vote no.
If they're already out there,
Okay
another
with that?
couple hours.
Yeah.
Run everything through,
Yeah.
see where we land.
See if you can get a couple extra hours.
Okay.
Run some data on this fourth
It's
point.
4 o'clock long enough.
I think so. I mean, it's going to start getting dark, hour and a half, 2 hours later, right?
Those time change, I
I
believe.
think the 12th. The 12th.
Huh?
The 12th time changes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Of March?
Yeah.
Oh.
Don't
there
you
you have
say
it.
anything negative about that. We all are looking forward to that.
Well,
See if you can do the 4.
Okay. And
No, it's horrible. What's wrong with you?
while we're doing this, if we know of anybody up there that is willing to talk about a tower site on their property, send them my way. I'm willing to go up to the church and have a meeting if I need to. I'm willing to go sit on the front steps of the store if I need to. So just let me know.
And the biggest thing on that is got to be able to either reach Blakey or reach Hoover Ridge. If it doesn't do that, then
And
Kind of
we
a
need
moot
to
point.
move this thing along. I mean,
The big thing here, and I actually have talked with the fire chief and the sheriff about this. Our communications right now are bad. We had a missing person Wednesday 2 weeks ago, and we had a real tough time communicating on mobiles in places. We had a fire up there 2 years ago. We had trouble talking to water tenders 100 yards away. My fear is that we're going to eventually our luck's going to run out. What got Greene County in trouble over there, and what they got on the system for, is they had a fire chief go into a house, call a mayday, and nobody heard it. So, God forbid that ever happens. And I'm not making light of anybody's concerns because we need to make sure we do right by everybody. But I don't want to put responders in a bad spot either.
so I've forgotten, Brian, whether can we fire up this system without that one in place?
We can.
Yeah.
That is what we call a spur site.
Uh-huh.
We could operate off of Beautiful Blakey and Hoover Ridge, but we would lose a dramatic number up there on Portland. Mobile, not so
Sure.
much. Mobile, we would not lose. The biggest thing we lose up there is the very tip of Nevers, the upper parking lot, all the way down to the lower parking lot, maybe as far as the 2 churches. what you would lose, the biggest portion is mobile on the hip, portable on the hip, excuse me. So the officers have it on their hip, EMS has it on their hip, fire has it, on whatever they have. The portable is what we lose a lot of, and we lose a lot of in-building coverage up there along Churchill, along Churchill Road, Hughes River Road, Etland Road loses some, Champlain loses some. There's quite a bit of area up there that go dark, according to the projected maps. Now, the reality is we won't know exactly what we lose until we test out, and we can't do that until we turn it on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not holding up the rest of it. That's right.
Yeah, it would, I would imagine if you go into those two, there would be some amendments to the existing contract to allow those other things to go live. Because Green's tied to us, and I know Motorola talked to us before, like we got Pocosin, we got Madison's northern site, what are we doing? And Green finally got theirs figured out.
The difference with Pocosin and our north end sites, Pocosin was a loop site. That was dependent on microwave to tie it all together. The north end site here is not. It's completely a spur to give us more coverage in that end of the county. With that being said, if we decide to go that path, we need to really be committed to going back and to getting it up at some time, knowing that cost will be more to do that because we have to remobilize everything.
I was taking his comment a little differently. Is that if there is delay on the spur site in Etland, does that mean the rest of it can't be turned on?
No.
Not saying that we're going to postpone the Etland.
Right.
A tower's going up in Etland.
Right.
I think every person up here is going to vote for a tower to go up in Etland. We're asking everybody to participate and try to get us the best location that is
the biggest
actual.
The biggest reason we are trying to get it all done before we go live is so that we don't have to pay the microwave folks for one time to come here and set dishes and find pad. If we choose to turn everything on, that means we have to install microwave on the existing 8 towers and then come back and put it on the 9th at a later date. That was the whole reason for trying to keep it in secret.
You're going to be able to check out these other sites pretty promptly.
I can do it tonight if you need me to.
No, I don't know. That's too quick.
Little portion, we'll get them to expedite the review, but that's probably what safely say a week because that's what it was for this.
It took us about 10 days to get it back from the microwave network folks. Then they have a very extensive program they run it through. They even take into account treating.
We
So-
seem to meet on a weekly basis, so we'll whenever you get done, I'm sure we'll have a meeting that night, and we'll talk about it again. Come back with some information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
That's fun. It's critical infrastructure. All right. No other old business. Madison Day request, Mr. Weekly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Late last week, Ms. Coppage dropped by. For one, just to plug the event, they have their 4th annual Madison Day event. This is a community event, and it will be happening on May 6th. Similar to last year, they are requesting waiver of tipping fees. For those who may not be in the know, this is a community event. There's several projects being done, so they may be doing deck repairs or landscaping, or there may be debris that needs to be moved away for that. So that second last paragraph, they have some roll-off containers that are being donated. They're just asking they request a waiver of those tipping fees. They have a huge presence above last year. If you look at the last sentence in the first paragraph, they will have approximately 375 volunteers. Most of those are Woodbury folks.
I don't think that's right.
No, they have, Woodbury has at least 300 of those numbers. We have coordinated with the schools.
Much higher than that.
Yeah, we have coordinated with the schools, and they're providing the bus transportations for the day, but it's growing each, which is a great thing for the community, right? That's what you want. But they've made a request similar to last year, so I cannot waive fees on my own. That is a board direction.
All right. Who wants to make a motion for like the best thing in Madison County?
All right, just let me, Jonathan, so they were also asking a request for a waiver of permit fees, which I understand that they've talked to Jamie, but Karen doesn't think they're going to have any projects that are going to need permit fees, but if they did, they would submit them to Jamie ahead of time. Is that the way you would?
Yeah, they would definitely have to do that. And I'll get an update from Karen. I'm not tracking
We
any.
should
Add
put
that
that
to
in.
the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not tracking any at this time, but if it pops up, sure.
Yeah. All right.
Add that to the motion. I mean, this is like great. She is the only person I've ever heard that has turned down volunteers because they've gotten too many. Just great.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we waive permit fees and tipping fees for the Madison Day event.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, in EMS lease renewal, Mr. Weekly.
Yes, thank you. And thanks to Mr. Gregg. So I've met with David James. Our current lease runs out May 1st of this year. And we anticipate, obviously we're going to have discussion tonight, some level of construction would need to take place. So we believe that's going to take some time to get that done. So what I am going to hand up to you to consider, or no, sorry, Mr.
Yeah.
We used to have. This is a 12-month renewal with a 90-day termination, is what you have in front of you. There is no increase in rent or lease payment in this lease. I think it's adequate. I understand the board is probably going to want to move expeditiously in its renovation, but that too is going to take time, to walk through what you want to do, design, get it to a good bid package, get it out, award it, and start the project. So that's for 12 months. That 12-month period would start May 1st of this year. And if you are considering making a motion, if you want to, I don't know, Sean, if that's drafted for me to sign or the chairman, but whoever's the signatory on that.
The one tonight that is
I believe Mr. Hobbs actually prepared the last one, but in any event, this is a contract that directs the
That's the
chairman
old
to
one.
sign it.
And what was in your packet was the current one, so you could see what that looked like compared.
And the only changes are we change it to a month to month rather than a yearly, or not a month, a 12-month as opposed to a 1-year lease with subsequent renewals if we need them. I chose to leave that language in. We also have a 90-day opt-out so that if construction moves quickly, ever the optimist, we would have the ability to terminate this contract earlier.
And Sean, I don't see anything in the first lease or this one that if we find ourselves 12 months from now and we go to a month to month where Mr. James can ask us to leave. I don't see where he can ask us to leave, so which is a good thing.
That is correct.
Yeah, I don't think
Point
he's.
that out. Good God.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. He's not going to be looking to ask. I mean this seriously. He's not going to look to ask us to leave. That's a big commercial space, and we're kind of a guaranteed customer, if you will. He is willing to consider, a month to month after the 12 months if you need it.
Right.
When I initially met with him, we bounced back and forth. Is it 18-month needed with a, a 12-month, 90-day out, a month to month up to 18 months, just because it could give you that period of time if the renovation. We don't know what it's going to take. I mean, there's a lot of decisions you all have to make, but this is the best of that. It doesn't commit you for 18 months. A year, I think, is adequate to get this project done, assuming that's the board's direction in the near future.
Mr. Chairman, one point that I did want to make, I left it that we would have the opportunity to renew this for 3 successive years if necessary. We can certainly take that out, but it doesn't hurt us to have it in.
Yeah. There's no reason to pull that off. That gives a little bit of insurance. What would y'all like to do?
Well,
Or other questions? Excuse me.
no further questions here. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm moved that board authorize the chair to execute the lease agreement with Mr. and Mrs. James.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. EMS renovation report. Mr. Weekly.
Yes, sir. So a couple of things. In the packet was the report we received, I think it was last week. Over the weekend, I emailed you all. I just kind of did some quick calculations and adjustments that I think may be applicable for your consideration. Certainly, I don't know if you want me to go through this, but I can give you the summary. When the renovation committee met, and that's comprised of county staff and Supervisor Hoffman, Supervisor Dawson, we talked about layout options and what could this building be, and quite honestly, if there are some additional things that we'd like to request. That led from a layout, and I think Mr. Helm, I think, was the one that created that. We gave them to at least have a starting point. Several site visits by Virginia A&E, who's a wing of the Hurt and Profit Engineering Service Agreement. They came out, heard from us the kind of things we're looking for. They came back out as well, looked at conditions. Part of the PER required some inspections, so we looked at the, what is the unknown to define known, like asbestos or mold or whatever. There was very and that's a great thing. There was very limited findings in the report, and those abatement items are actually in the sheet I handed out to you all. Very low limit. I think it's like $10,000 worth of asbestos remediation, mold remediation. So that tells you we're at a very good, comfortable level. There was 3 options that were proposed. Option 1 is renovating and this primarily focuses on the former rescue squad building. The modular, which was the original home of Madison County Emergency Management Services, that is listed in this report, but it's not listed in your calculations, either theirs or mine. They had a budget estimate of about $195,000 of renovations. I left that out of your consideration. As I've said before, transparent, I'm focusing on how do we get the primary accomplished, and then we can always go back and visit the secondary. Option 1 is renovating the existing building. The main areas would get turned in, as you walk through the door, will get turned into bedrooms with office space either renovated and or created for officer levels along the corridor beyond the radio room and where some of the older bays were. I think they turned it in. It was a captain's office, and the wash bay area would be utilized or renovated for the officers. The upper bays would stay the same. They do factor in some climate control. Their version of climate control is really closing in those current openings. There's a large window, single pane, and there's some other openings that would not only allow heat to move throughout that upper bay and back into occupied space, but as well as potential vehicle fumes. So what they've done is they are enclosing that area that was along the hallway. If you may remember, there's a window and there's a larger stairwell opening that goes down. The access would be walking down the steps, which you get to now just outside of the bunk room. And I believe everybody's visited there. So if I'm naming off this part of the building, let me know. If you can scroll through, please, to get to the appendix as I'm going through this so the general public can see this as well. This is in the packet, by the way, for those who are in the audience tonight. So option 1, continuing with that, some renovation down at the bottom. It all depends on the board's decision. I do wish to advise, give some consideration of leveling the concrete floors at that lower bay. It's the larger drive-through bays, but it's at the bottom. It does have that kind of pole barn construction, but believe it's sturdy. You just need to look at whether you're insulating changing out any of the damaged panels that look like a mower or something hit. But I would advise at least looking at leveling that floor. So there is considerations in there for that. When you're looking at your tabulations, they have it broken out by discipline. So that's when you get to roughly about page 51 in your report is where it starts kind of your tabulation of cost. It's viewed as architectural, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, and each one of those sections has a demolition component as well as a new construction component. Does that say option one? I think so. No, go one more. Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going one more past that because that was all right, right there. So this is option one's layout. As you can see, coming in from where you see the lettering at the bottom of that page, I know it's side orientation, but you see Virginia A&E's name and all that to the bottom. You enter the front building now from 29 Business. So this configuration, you would walk through into a lobby that would be protected. So you can't just freely access the space where staff would be. There's a reception area, but that could be whatever, whether it's reception or you're meeting with someone, whatever, but it's still a controlled environment where they could not go beyond that and interact with staff unless staff was responding to a need. You come through, which is the continuation of the larger room. If many of you have been over there for chicken dinners or bingo or meetings or whatever, that meeting space gets turned into some open area, but you see all the bunk areas that if you look at where the windows face Route 29 or Business 29 now, that is the bunk room presentation that is considered there. The existing bunk rooms would then be converted into locker rooms, men and women's locker rooms. Right now, as I said, there were, I think, 2 bunk beds or 4 bunk beds or something that the former rescue squad was using. Full bathrooms, so that's a great thing, and I believe they actually meet the ADA requirements. So any of the ADA adjustment that's referenced in the report is primarily looking at the bathrooms that are what I call the public bathrooms. Those are the ones, if you went there, you kind of went through the hallway, and there's 2 bathrooms there near one of their control rooms. Some minor updates there. Again, keeping the 3 upper bays as configured. There may be some lighting or different things that need to be configured. There is a split system listed in the narrative as recommendation. If you were going to heat and cool, do it with a split system. Continue down through that door. Right now, they've got, I'm just going to call them makeshift concrete steps. You've seen them whether you're entering up on somebody's house who hasn't built the porch yet or something like that. They're pre-formed, but they're not ideal. So there would be a need to redo, and that's what they reflect in a proper landing as you're stepping down to the storage room. And then there's a existing room now. It's kind of a little musky, and I think there's a deep like kitchen sink in there and stuff. That would be what's proposed to be converted into your medical supply room. I will emphasize that wherever the drugs, the medical supplies, those type of drugs are being at, DEA, I think I got the acronym, they have mandates and requirements of how those are controlled, stored and controlled as far as environment. So if you're looking at saying, hey, keep a jump bag so you're loading and offloading the truck with that, that could be an option. I just want to focus on whether it's in the ambulance or wherever those drugs are stored, that has to be climate controlled. We cannot get around that per DEA guidelines, which Mr. Hillstrom has to sign off on for Madison County. Continuing through your storage area, you get down to the existing lower bays. I want to say that's probably about a 32 by 40 plus, wide by long. You certainly, the advantage there is you can drive through ambulances. Again, it's just a little bit uneven of floor. I think the report references about a 3 to 4 inch step down between bay 1 and 2s. The first due, second due, that's not my call as far as where do you want to keep ambulances. I think that's, you rely on who's running the division and the board's feedback of where you want ambulances. But certainly you could use the upper 3 or the lower bays, whichever is best. Going back up to the other side. So if you come through that front door and go down the hall instead of coming past into the bunk rooms as in locker rooms, You go to what was a current radio room. I believe we're keeping that. And they're renovating the existing captain's office, would be the lieutenant's office. And then you have division chief, deputy chief, chief offices. The lieutenant's door, you see an exterior door labeled there. That's existing. So we're not like creating a specialty door, but that is existing. However, the new door will be factored in off in between the deputy and chief's offices. And the primary of that is trying to keep some control. They certainly can park on that backside of the building, so staffing can park out front and come in and kind of not disturb the duty crew if they're entering or exiting the building. So that would be a newly created door. But quite frankly, you have one bay door that's still there, and I think another one that was framed in, which is they created another office currently for the former rescue squad. So this example renovates the existing building. It does not add footprint. Any questions on option one before do we want to talk option two, option three, so you know what's in the report? I can give a
Anybody wanna
brief.
Go into option one or two and three with the additional cost of $1 million per.
I mean, if you
option.
just want a one-line summary, option two was tearing down that back portion for the general public and the board where you see the lower bays and even some of that storage, they were tearing that down, leveling grade, bringing it back up. And there was kind of like this ramp access that would move from that lower to that upper bay area. There was additional cost. Their cost estimates, I revised that, but the was about 2.2 or something like that. And then option three was a complete tear down and rebuild, which was well north of 3 million. Let me give you the numbers now. Option one, they have listed at 1.35 million. Option two was at 2.25 million. And option three is at 3.65 million. Going through this, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I definitely believe there's a lot of increased factor to this. And you probably saw the rendition I gave you. It's about a 55% in your last table that kind of shows things such as markups for design contingency, renovation, limited access factor. We won't have that because we're not in the space while they're renovating it. There's inflation. We naturally know that incurs, but they have that at 20%. A COVID-19 supply and labor impact factor. I view that as supply chain, so I would count that as kind of my inflation number. They have a general conditions of a 10% contingency, if you will, and then another 15% for general contractor overhead and profit. So that's what took your number from a 760 some thousand. You add all those contingency factors, and for option one, you get to 1.35. So I handed out and emailed you on Saturday, I believe, two things. One is just my notes, and I'm sorry when I try to export it, it turned it into a foreign language. So I made notes there of what I would cut out. The second I provided to you is a cost estimate as you go through demolitions of each trade or renovations. These are kind of my recommendations. I don't want to impress that these are our directors, our chiefs' renovation recommendations, but these are things that I saw that we can possibly reduce and get this cost down and have more reasonable inflation and contingency
appropriate. Probably putting some new ceiling gasket or something on the bottom of the door is probably also appropriate. Moving those doors at 17K is a waste of
Oh,
money.
are you, Mr. Chairman, I think if we go down the 17, are you looking at the 17,974 number?
No, just
No,
17
17
even.
flat, right? It's level 2 bay floors, and everybody's convinced me that that's a good idea, I guess. But moving those doors at 17K is just a waste of money.
Where am
It's under EJ. It's the second item down in the third block of them.
Yeah, that's not the one he's referring to. You're saying it's at even 17?
Architectural EMS new construction.
Second one down. It's adjust door in 2 bay floor. On the first page.
The only 17 I see, and forgive me, but the only 17,000 that I see is for door hardware.
All the way over.
Oh.
17.
See where you have the 215, your number.
Oh, there's two at 8,500.
Yeah.
Tracking. I'm sorry, sir. I'm with
Yeah, we're
you.
looking at the total, not
I'm
the
with you.
unit.
Okay, so not adjust, but I think I heard either you or Supervisor Dawson look at some sloping option or.
Do
If you
something.
just roll the edges,
There
I
you
mean,
go.
they pull in, it's gonna go up some, but
17K.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
too much. It's too much.
Okay, let me make a note on that.
Yeah, we're on there.
All right, so architect. Okay.
Puts us below 215 in that side. Keep going, Jonathan. You're doing great.
All right, so we're not adjusting the door. Let's see. The motors make sense. You should have doors that are motorized. On the second page for the architectural, I know there was conversations about should we be paying people to install whatever. My recommendation is we can get that when we get there, but really overall, and I mean this sincerely because I know it's taxpayers' dollars. We have to buy the material. The labor is, I think if I add it all up, it's less than 1,000. So I didn't focus on. I left it in for now, but with all due respect, if the board wants to take it out later, we can certainly do that. But the grand scheme of things, I left it in for right now. So the total, I would need to take the 257. I just need to go in and retotalize that, taking out the 17,000 that you just referenced. You want to move on to mechanical,
Yeah,
Mr.
by all
Chairman?
means.
All right, so the mechanical, the demolition, I left that to where they had it. That was a total of 7,681. The new construction, I guess I should just mention what I'm taking out would probably be easier versus what I'm keeping in. So when you get down under new construction for mechanical, basically those last three items, the hoseless exhaust system, what I would like to do with staff, and definitely when we get into the design phase, one, I need to see from Virginia A&E what is that item to them. I know the chief and I had some conversation. I think they make units that go on the vehicle. So if that's an option, I'm not saying we ignore the concern of exhaust, just really see how to handle that. So I pulled that off. That was 42,000.
Did
Um,
we determine if the clean burn vehicles don't need those? I know you were gonna check into that, Noah. I'm sorry. The clean burns still need that piece on there?
The what was in the report was if all future purchases consider the clean burn is what
Okay.
they're recommending if you're going to purchase new ambulances.
But we still need to get rid of some exhaust fumes. CO2 is a bad deal.
Yeah. So I'd like to look at some different options. Pull it out for now, but talk to, if you're going to go out for bids, maybe that's the time to talk to whoever the engineer is going to be. Is it something that goes on the unit, this hose system, or fresh air louvers, but just something. But option one takes and close off the exhaust fumes from coming up that other hallway, if you will.
So it's somehow going to vent in the bays that the exhaust is running.
Yeah, some of the sites we visited had fresh air systems, so it's just a louver. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
Supervisor Dawson. So I just think we explore it. Don't ignore the exhaust issue, but just see how we can mitigate that. So I removed that for right now. The the wet pipe sprinkler system and the sprinkler system. We talked to the building official earlier on, and that's not required because we're occupying that space. We're not changing the use of it. I would, so I pulled that. So if you remove the exhaust system, the sprinkler systems, that's a deduction of 148,630.
Oh,
Um,
cut like crazy.
when you go into, do you want to move on to plumbing?
Yeah.
The plumbing, I didn't cut anything. The only thing I made a note in there, and now Supervisor Dawson may have comments on it. It depends on, do you want to leave the existing hot water heaters there in place or not? They recommend going to some type of instantaneous.
The 30 gallon that's down there in the what I'm gonna call is the bottom down in the two bays.
Yeah,
that's junk.
Yeah.
That needs to just go to the dump.
Yeah, but what's in the bunk rooms is probably okay.
I think in the report it says that it's in good condition,
Yeah.
and the county does not need another hot water heater that we put in some storage building. Leave the dang thing there.
The only thing I would encourage, I made a note at the bottom, if you do any piping, go PEX, don't go copper. For one, from the water side, they've got all these programs to try to avoid lead and copper, so why do that? And then PEX is just easier to work with.
Is it not cheaper too?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, what? Yeah,
Yeah.
go down that.
And for the plumber's son, it's easier for me to install. So, all right, moving along. Electrical. I'm proposing that we keep the existing generator. I visited the site on several occasions. Now I need to get the records. I'm sure they exist somewhere. I don't have them, but that generator seems to be in good working order. I do know it's probably a 30-year-old generator. I believe that.
Years.
Oh,
Those are
30
the
good
ones that
years.
work.
But honestly, it was a lower mileage, if you will, because when they would run it, and I talked to the president of the former rescue squad, they would, even during some of their events, actually start it up to put a load on it, which I would recommend we would do the same. But keep that. We need to, maybe look at the building or the fuel area over there. But other than that, that generator, I think it's in good shape. I would recommend, let's look long term.
He started it. We were there. It
Yeah.
started right up. Yes.
Yeah, that ATS, and I agree. A lot of,
For ATSs?
and that's a 75 kW, sir. So I don't know what that means on the switch.
Yeah, you gotta have two 400 amp transfer switches and 200, so you're gonna have, you're gonna have $35,000-$50,000 in it, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So is there, well, easy way out for me to say it's still taxpayer money, but is there a chance we could explore grants in years to come?
100%. I could actually explore a grant with the SHSP grant that's coming up. That one falls under that side. I'm sure there's an angle there I could look at.
I mean, if y'all are okay
I'll
with
also
that.
be sitting in on their workshop the next month. And
Everybody else except me knows what is an SHP grant.
you don't know.
No, I know exactly. Everybody else knows. Come on.
It's the state part of the Homeland Security grant.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
And
So pull it out now, and we can add that as a contingency item or something.
yeah,
like
and
that.
some of the
Yeah, let me
other
know.
pulling, like they have single phase panels on. I pulled those items out, and
look
quite
at
frankly, I would defer to Supervisor Dawson's electrician, anyone else's electrician, but certainly they can go in and look at it if there's concerns. I did leave this in the. There were two items that were kept in there I want to point out. It makes sense to complete building lighting with LED. I think we need to take advantage of that. I mean, there are some things where we're going to have to spend money or should spend money. Remove device branch circuits. I take that as being if there are older circuits or unused circuits or whatever, that would be that work, but I left that in. But overall, that was a deduction of 141,205.
Wait a minute.
141. What is that, Dustin?
I don't know. I really would like to see
I just rework device branch circuits. I don't know whether rework means put new devices in there or actually run new wire. 54 grand is a lot of money.
So I'll make a notes here to follow up with the engineering firm.
Just a
and we'll get-
definition.
The only one Dustin pointed out to me, and I think there's validity to it, is back there in that radio room where there's like an air handler. Or
And the things in the closet
it needs to probably, it needs better
properly
access.
vented and access.
Just get the cabinet and stuff out of the way there so you got working space.
That's right.
All right. Okay. Is that all in electrical? All right. All right. So the next moves you on to option one. Didn't touch that. So flip your page to the summary. And I just pointed out that if you looked at all those contingencies and things they had in there, it adds, I think I factor in $589,612. Kim, can you bring up this sheet? So taking the trimmings, now granted, I got the 17K we need to adjust. There were some other things. So that is not reflected in this sheet. But I just went through and showed you what the demolition was for each, the construction components. Go down a little further. And then I really just tackled the, now I threw $100,000 in there for design and bid. It may be under that. Certainly the design and bid should not cost more than that. But all that tallies up to $596,271. Factored in a 10% inflation, you get near 60. Can you scroll over a little bit, or is my number below? Where's my 20% number in there?
Yeah, it's off to the right a little bit.
You got to minimize that, or there's a 20%.
Your
Page
20%.
two.
Your 20%.
Oh, I didn't send that. Yeah, the 20% contingency. So after you add inflation to the number, the 596, it gets you to a 655,898. Then I put 20% contingency over top of that, which was an additional 131, 179.62. That gets you to roughly almost a $788,000 budget item. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't claim that this will be your number, but this is what I feel like based on what I saw in that report, based on what you have communicated over the course, that may be more reflective. But your numbers really don't come into the market. I can say engineers in general on projects now, they are putting numbers north. Their concern is being underestimated. So you see a lot of these. I haven't seen this many like broke out like say 4 or 5 categories. You usually see it in 2 and 3, but you're seeing larger contingencies. Before I left King George, I think I was seeing contingencies of 35%, which 10 to 15 can be expected, but 35%, and that's been 3-4 years ago. Again, I wanted to give you the rundown of the report that I saw. Certainly, you may have feedback, and then ultimately, hopefully, the board will get to a point where you want to authorize us to go secure engineering services to get you to a design and bid package.
Anybody else have anything else that they'd like to point out for cut, add back? I think Jonathan's done a great job.
You did great.
Really.
I want to be respectful. I have not. I mean, I shared this maybe the other day or so with our chief. So, I'm not sure if he, has any
Y'all
thoughts, but
General comments?
No, thank you for the review. Our concern, mission, functionality, safety for our employees. Thank you.
Good comments. Yeah, you're doing great. I'd assume this should all be included in the CIP.
the number I gave you, the 788, is currently plugged into the number you're going to see on Thursday. That's what makes our number higher. You're going to see that number.
Let's go through CIP, see if we can put it as part of the budget, and then we can go from there.
Okay.
It looks great. Really, really does. Thank you for
The only thing I will say, and I mean, I'm not you can maybe look at this later on design. There was, I thought, a valid point, and I would like to hear your feedback on this. Option 2, forget about the tearing down the back, but they realigned where the sleeping quarters were versus the officers' quarters. So where the bunk rooms were showed, they put the officers there because the concern was traffic noise off of 29 Business, and moved the bunk rooms to the side. That, I think, is semantics at this point. Doesn't mean it's not a concern. But far as bidding it, that's something we would need to determine by then. But I did think it was an interesting point. So any feedback on that?
I'll let Noah speak too, but I actually like that drawing better when I saw it. If it's a 50-50 thing, I mean, if it's the same, either cost, either layout, I would put my number on that one, as long as there's still a radio room in the same place or roughly the same area, because we have some thoughts on what we want to do with that. But I like having the offices in front. I think that's a good thing, and I do like the idea of keeping them away from the street as well. The only question I had is I don't think that either of the option 1 or 2 did anything with the outside as far as the siding. So I don't know if there was a plan for that, would be my only question.
So right now, and thank you for that. So right now, that's not in there. I do think some of the funding that's in this sheet you could cover. So I'm going to throw some examples. If you're trying to replace panels like on that backside, which separates the lower bay from where the property goes downhill, there's some holes and different things there. Replacing panels. As far as what they reference in this report is you're getting to any aesthetics on that front side of the building, because they reference about brick and different things. Do you want to go with this a cement tile of, I call it fiberboard or vinyl siding? So that is not in here. It's a very good point. We would have to address regardless, keeping the same configuration of the 3 bays without widening it, we're going to have to rewrap and address that and make sure it's got the proper vapor barriers and all. But that is not addressed. Kind of that front, what's facing Business 29 now, is not addressed in this report. Or excuse me, my factor.
I saw, and on page 1, it talks about the items, the reface exterior, vinyl siding at 45, the fiber cement board at 75, and kind of going down through there. I saw the holes in the bottom area. Like, yeah, I make the joke about the flex tape, but we should probably do something about that. But I think that building needs to be power washed, cleaned up, and then we can evaluate that. I think potentially a coat of paint and power washing the brick, the siding, everything will drastically improve that building.
Okay.
I mean, it's just big dollar items, and we know how tight the budget is anyway.
And to the chairman's point, on page 1 is the other options, such as just listed that were not included in this overall.
There you go.
So what's the
Put it on
put it
CIP
so-
on Thursday.
and we'll talk about it then, and then at some point there'll be future direction. Okay.
That worked for everybody. I think you got to see the full picture. We know we need to do this. We just did the lease for a year, but this is coming.
I have later on in your agenda some additional monies that could go towards this. I'm going to report on. So
It's not enough. All right. Anything else on the EMS renovation? All right. Mr. Weekly, tell us about the DHCD Brightspeed MOU update.
yes, sir. This has been a continuation of trying to get this MOU signed so we know what broadband's going to look like up near Wolftown Hood area. We had 2 RDOF challenged areas in our first VATI application. We've got our northern part figured out. When Chantel backed out, that's the Etland area and so forth. That is tied into our VATI 2023 grant, which we're waiting on an announcement still. The governor has not announced that. But for that Wolftown Hood area, that was challenged, and it was formerly CenturyLink and Loomis. Now they are owned by Brightspeed. DHCD has been working, it seems like well over a year, This board, based on that last draft, gave me approval to sign when they got to the final MOU. Basically, it spells out performance metrics. They still have to complete. Actually, this is a shorter deadline. I believe it's December of 2024, where the rest of the county, the existing Firefly VATI grant we received, plus the future, everything has to be done by August 2025. So this one's expedited, but you're only talking, probably less than 1,000 customers or something like that up there, and that's probably why. So I told David Blunt, who's with Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, who's kind of the in between with Greene, Campbell, and Madison counties. They're more so keeping us in the know that just let me know. The board gave me authority back in November. Let's get this done so we can tell the community what our overall broadband picture looks like. Because what's on the website now, the link, that Firefly project is really pointing you to what was announced first, which is kind of everything central of the county. And so forth. So we'll hope to get that signed soon. Want to move on to the
Anybody have any
LATCF.
questions on that one? Please.
So Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. That's what LATCF stands for. Counties that were faced with any kind of negative impact of funding, and even during COVID. So this is additional rounds of CARES money, if you will. Madison County, because we participate in PILT and we're viewed as a potential negative impact county. And I think it's included in if you scroll through all the counties that were on their list, Madison's share was $100,000. And basically we can use it for infrastructure or different things. It's not as stringent as some of the other CARES funding that was made available in rounds 1 or 2. So this is $100,000 that wasn't on our radar until like this past month. We applied through the Treasury portal, got notice, and there are two $50,000 payments. Ms. Murray confirmed that we've already received the first $50,000. So I would propose, and I don't know if I need a spending plan on that. We did that with ARPA, but certainly if you're okay with the direction, I would suggest pledging this $100,000 towards this EMS renovation. It doesn't cover it all, obviously, but it helps. But it's good news that we're receiving that money and you can use it for different projects, whatever you choose.
Do we have questions, thoughts, or concerns on this? Seems like a good plan, Jonathan. Stick with that.
Yep.
All right, that's all I had for information. Miss Supervisor Hoffman, I think there was a VDOT thing you wanted to bring
Yeah,
up.
I did. Carl Brawls contacted me about Beautiful Run Road, and he wanted to know if maybe we could request a speed study. He said it's like a racetrack going down through there from you get off 231 to Beautiful Run. He said after that you have to slow down. But he said one neighbor's even had to put up a gate to make sure his 4 little children don't get out of that road.
It's super dangerous in there.
Yeah, he said
There's a lot of people that live down there. Anybody have any problem with the speed study on Beautiful Run?
Not at all.
Let's do it.
All right, so I will make
He said
that
it's
request to
no speed
VDOT.
limit, no signs posted at all. He thought it ought to be 45.
Okay.
It's got to be 55.
Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
no line, if it's no posted, yeah, and it's not lined or
Yeah.
anything. So.
Is Miss Shepherd working with us again, or we have the?
I don't know if she's back from maternity leave, but I'll reach out to Ed San Nicholas, who was here, I think, at our last
And
meeting.
Jonathan, if you find out something, let me know. I'll call him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excited to be that fella. All right. Anything else? I'm telling you. Public comment. Public comment. Public comment. All right. Thank you. We do have a closed session.
Let's see here. So we got all three tonight, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So I move that the board convene in a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A1 for personnel, 2.2-3711A7 for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and 2.2-3711A29 for discussion of the award of a public contract.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. All right.
All right.
Thank you, Gracie.